Um, did we looked at a few markets last week, and a lot of dollar markets were really sideways. They were just really choppy, not showing any clear directional bias. So, for example, your GBP USD, your NZD USD, your Euro USD, um, pretty much all dollar markets. All pretty much all dollar markets. I think even Euro dollar as well, and it's within the range from last week. Even if you're looking at the 4-hour chart right now, the market is actually from last week's open to where it is right now. That is about 22 pip difference. So it hasn't really moved much. And if we look at the trend, obviously we're still hoping to see it last pushes towards upside. Hopefully after that we might get a bit of a retracement to the downside. Obviously I'm not looking at any shorts until I start seeing the market trend towards the downside, which obviously will happen once we start seeing some breaks on some major levels, perhaps a break below the 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart, and we start seeing some momentum towards the downside. I think only then I'd be comfortably shorting. But for now, I think I'll stick to my long bias on the euro dollar. Obviously, waiting for some decent opportunities. We highlighted a few areas last week. One of them being, I think, the swing low point over here. The swing low point over here at 21.25. So on my part, I didn't really take the position because I was eyeing as well 21.16, somewhere around there. Got a nice bounce off the moving average. Boom, but the market rejected quite nicely. And towards the end of the week, last week, it actually pushed quite a lot. I mean, relatively speaking, to past weekly ranges, which have been around, this is 160 previous week, which is probably one of the larger weeks for the past 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, and yeah, I think I had about 150 pip move on the downside last week, but a really nice retracement off of there. So for now, it hasn't really moved much. Okay, looking at it now, I think I see probably the swing low point over here. So structure wise, I think 2150, 2145. Okay, if we do get the pullback far enough to get a bounce off the 200 moving average on the 4-hour, let's say market just stalls there and then moves towards the downside, boom, and then heads upwards. Obviously, I mean, towards those higher parts of the range, that's about at least 100 pips. So we'll have to see. Just have to basically wait and see how the market behaves. But for me, I'm really liking this 2145 level, so we'll just keep an eye on that. GBP CHF also hasn't really given us any clear directional bias for the past month or so. If you look at the 4-hour, in a couple of weeks, the market has been stuck inside the range. I mean, it's just been moving between this 26 or 2700 zone, right? So which is where it's currently trading at or close to right now. Yeah, so it's 127. So it's just been moving few pips, moves breaks up 100 pips or so towards the upside and then down 100 pips, and then obviously the range just got tighter in the past 4 weeks or so. So for me, I'm still looking at this as a long because I haven't really seen any reason for me to believe that when the market breaks below or when the market breaks outside of this range, it's going to be towards the downside. Obviously, if that does happen, I'd like to see a bit of a retest, probably back up to 25, 60, not 67, 69. Only then would I be comfortable in taking a short on GBP CHF. But for now, I'm still holding my long bias in the GBP CHF, so I'd much rather see a break above swing high point here. It's around 128 even, around 12800. Clean break, pull back, bounce off the 200 moving average on the 4 hour, then definitely be enough to that. So ideally that's what I'd like to see. Bit of an extension will obviously be needed, but for me I'd still be comfortable taking that particular trade. A GBP JPY on the other hand, I mean, it hasn't really broken the range per se. It actually pulled back quite nicely into 54.84 and moved up like, I don't know, close to 100 pips, if I remember correctly. I was actually in this trade as well. Got a really good entry off of it, and actually went out and exited a bit early on this, probably had about 83 pips if I'm not mistaken, simply because I still had the GBP USD trades on the long side as well from last week. So I think it was more a case of just reducing my risk on there, because the GBP USD, the actual entry was at 14100, right? So below the previous week's low. We didn't really quite get the bounce of the 200 moving average, but everything was just so perfect here. I think on the 1 hour mark, the market was just right, or rather, the moving average was moving within the market. So it was just basically ranging. So this was just a trade off the bottom of the range at 14100, and yeah, I think didn't quite reach the level that I wanted it to reach. I think it missed my TP by 5 or 6 pips. So obviously before end of the week I wanted to get out of the trade, but possibly we might get another pullback towards this 14100 level. If that does happen, and get a clean bounce off the 200 on the 4 hour time frame, then I think that would definitely be something worth putting some money on. Okay. And yeah, I think on my end, I was looking at, I think it was USD CAD. USD CAD has been really patient as well with that one. Been held up, quite a while at 124, at 120.50. Around 120.50, the market has just been chopping sideways. That is a monthly swing low point over here. Right? So 2041, so it's 2050. And I was hoping to see the market extend down to 1929. So it doesn't break this swing low point over here. It doesn't break this really strong level over here. Then possibly we're going to have a return back up to the higher parts, right, to the upper levels of this trading sort of like range on the weekly time frame. So we just basically have to wait and see. For me though, I'd still take one more push towards the downside, as long as the moving average is tagged probably around 120. Let's just say 121.50. Probably I'd like to see the market come back up to this 120 even level, just to spike at least, So just pull back up, spike, tag the 200 on the 4 hour, and then pull back towards the downside. Even if it's just a range sort of play at about 150 pips towards the lower part of the range. So you can easily nab anywhere between 90 to 100 pips on this. Okay, likewise, it's very similar. Australian dollar CAD, also very similar in that it hasn't really done much since. Our bias hasn't really changed much. I prefer to see the market move all the way back up to 94.50. That's about 94.50. Even this swing high point over here would actually work for me. So this is 94.30. Would definitely be an area of interest, but preferably 94.50. But it's not that far off. It's not that far off. And this market really doesn't move that much. So even a 50 pip stop loss is um, considerably comfortable on the Australian dollar CAD. So either entry could probably work on this one. And I think for me, those really are the markets that are starting to do something. Apart from that, if NZD/USD still ranging sideways, it's probably below this low part of the range. Probably we might get the same sort of behavior coming into this week, down below that 71.32 level, and then the market pulls back up. But we'll basically have to be patient with that. So let's wait and see if it does break higher. Because for me, I'd like to see the break towards the upside, and then pull back obviously towards that 0.732 level, order for me to be convinced that okay, now we're outside the range and we might start seeing some trending sort of behavior from this particular market. So yeah, in terms of trade wise, I don't have anything on at the moment. I don't think so, no. I don't think so. Yeah, so I think hopefully in the course of the week, we might get Thursday, we might get Friday as well, because like I mentioned before, when we were doing some of our previous analysis sessions, that I mean, it does seem like the market does move a bit more than it has in the past on Friday as well as on a Thursday. Because Thursdays, as well as Fridays, have just been a day of really just closing off the week. But sometimes it just seems like the market doesn't do anything all week, and then on Thursday, boom, starts seeing some really wild patterns or movements from the market. So that increase in volatility can actually help or hinder the plan, but it's all about patience at the end of the day. So it really doesn't make much of a difference. So anything interesting that you guys want to take a look at? Okay. I know most guys can't do it today, especially around this time. I feel like 8 to 10 is what a lot of guys are experiencing load shedding, guys that I know of. Okay, right, so I'll give a few minutes, guys, for you guys to gather what other questions or markets that you wanted to take a look at. If not, then I'll just end off the session, because I mean, not